Good morning, you're very welcome back to the show. Now, at just 15, our next guest chose to attend a cookery school in Galway.
What followed, our guest claims, was years of unpaid labour, psychological manipulation and religious coercion at the hands of Opus Dei.
Anne-Marie Allen joins us now to discuss her new book, Serve. Good morning to you,
Morning,
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie.
Thanks so much for talking to us. Can you explain to me what is Opus Dei?
Opus Dei is a very powerful organisation. It goes on the basis that you can become holy in your everyday life. I think that basic notion is quite good, but however, I think that it just became a very powerful and very wealthy organisation that is worldwide.
It's something that we'd know from the Da Vinci Code. You know, it's kind of mentioned in, that's where it came to an awful lot of prominence, that it's a very severe form of sect of Catholicism, essentially, right?
Yeah,
and it's got very strict rules around it.
Yes.
So how did your contact with Opus Dei begin?
I was 15 years of age, and I became aware that this course was in catering, a diploma in catering was being offered in this school. I had always wanted to be a chef. I was a good cook. I had been working in a local hotel while I was going to school. So yeah, it was my dream that I would, when I did my leaving cert, that I would go and do this course, or that I would become a chef. But this course came up, it seemed to be very good. It was a 2-year diploma. It was live-in. We were going to get paid a pocket money of £5 a week, punts a week at the time. It just seemed to be, my parents thought it was quite good and that it was quite the main thing, the sweetener, was that I would get a job at the end of it. Ireland was in deep recession at the time. People older than me were going to England and America and all that. So I was guaranteed a job at the end of it, and that was the sweetener that I suppose enticed my parents to send me there.
Okay, so you love cookery, you left school, you thought you were going off to a cookery course with a job at the end of it.
Yes.
Your parents, everybody thought this was safe. When did you realise, this is at the age of 15, still very young, what happened whenever you got there?
So we got there it was October 1978, and I think very quickly we kind of realised that this wasn't all it was cracked up to be. There didn't seem to be any formal classes, no curriculum. There didn't seem to be any textbook or anything like that. And we were running. There was a bunch of us. We were doing the domestic service of a conference centre in Tuam, and in male student residence in Galway. And that's where I was sent. Where I was there maybe a week, and 3 of us were sent into this centre. We'd leave at 8:30 in the morning, we'd come back at 9 o'clock at night, and we were in the basement of this house doing the cookery, the laundry, and the cleaning of the house. The male residence, that was separate. There was a locked door system between both, and we went in at designated times to clean and to serve the food. So, and we did that 7 days a week.
Yeah, that ain't a cookery course. So did you know at this stage that you were in Opus Dei?
There was some mention of it before we went there, but then once the very first night that we started, they started to tell us about Opus Dei. Then, I mean, it was full on.
So what was your typical day?
So our typical day was, as a student at the time, was mass in the morning, quick breakfast, and then off to work, to either the conference centre or to the student residence. And then we were expected to partake in some of the religious practices of Opus Dei as well, and which was prayer, rosary, and all that as well.
You were having to do things like kissing the floor.
Well, that was when you became a member, Tommy. When I joined Opus Dei, I was 16 when I joined Opus Dei. About maybe 8 months after I became a student, I joined Opus Dei as an assistant numerary, which is the lowest grade. So yeah, you'd have to kiss the floor.
Talk to us. What's a day in life as part of Opus Dei then?
Okay, first thing is you kiss the floor, and that's where the word serve came from. You say, serviam, which is I serve. And that was to explain, I suppose, the captivity, my day of captivity in Opus Dei. So you kissed the floor, you were in silence until after Mass. You did the full Mass, and then you did 2 half hours of prayer, the 15 decades of the Rosary. You did the Angelus twice a day, benediction on a Saturday. And that was just, it was full-on Catholic practices every single day.
Did you have a bed?
Did I have a bed?
Yeah, I believe, were you having to sleep on the floor, or was there...
Well, we had a bed, absolutely, had single beds. One night a week we're encouraged to sleep on the floor.
Okay.
And one night a week without a pillow. And then there was obviously the mortification part of it as well.
Which is, what's the mortification?
The mortification part is, I was 16 when I was given a chain and a whip, and I was told to mortify myself. I was instructed to mortify myself. It wasn't voluntary. There was no kind of, I suppose, no lead into it, no discernment. And I was told that this was, the founder did it, but we only had to do it for 2 hours a day. So I wore this chain on my leg for 2 hours a day. Sometimes it was increased if they felt you were struggling with your vocation, as it were. It was never decreased, but it was increased. And so that was part of the mortification. There was loads of other little things they had to do as well.
So,
part of mortification.
So punishing yourself, it
was a form of self-harm.
Self-harm, exactly.
It was a form of self-harm that was approved by the organisation and that we had to impose on ourselves, yeah.
When you first started, if I just want to get my head around this, when you were 15 years old, you're away from your family, the context with your family isn't there. And we were very Catholic. It's 1979. We were a very Catholic country at the time anyway. Did you think, when you were like, why am I going to Mass every day as part of my diploma? Like, when did things start to... Because you became a member yourself when you were 16.
Yeah, when I was 16.
It's not like you could leave, though, could you?
Could leave the course or to leave the...
To leave the course, to leave everything.
Well, I mean, I had given up a lot to do the course, so, so I said, look, I'll see it out. But then what happened then was, as part of the course, we were assigned mentors to help us with our studies. But what was happening was that you were talking to these mentors, they were members of Opus Dei, and you were telling them personal things about yourself, and they were very friendly, very nice, really, really friendly and very interested in us and in me. So you'd start sharing your teenage angst and little problems that you had, and they'd say, sure, why don't you say a prayer? Why don't you pray to the founder? Why don't you just pray, go into the oratory? Why don't you join us in some of our... So gradually, next thing, the idea of a vocation was introduced. And I was asked, did I know what an assistant numerary was? And then I was told, look, you have a vocation as big as a house. And it was very quick, but it was gradual, but it was quick.
Yeah, and a 15-year-old mind, yeah, that
15, 16-year-old mind, yeah.
How did you get out?
How did I get out? Cardinal Basil Hume in England at the time, about 1981, he issued some rulings that Opus Dei weren't to recruit anyone under 16 years of age, I think. So my parents got wind of that because we had family living in the UK who were able to inform. So my father then started a long discussion with Opus Dei trying to get me home. It went on for a long, long time, and I eventually came home, and my dad kept me at home. But it was a while before I was actually able to leave Opus Dei.
How long were you in Opus Dei for?
I was in Opus Dei from the age of 16, technically, until I was 22.
22?
22 years of age, yeah.
And when did you get home? What age were you when you got home?
I was just almost 21.
Almost 21.
Yeah, so there was a period there that I kind of lived a double life until I could leave Opus Dei, but I had to kind of deprogram myself, and I had to get used to the ways of the world outside of Opus Dei, because keep in mind, when I was in Opus Dei, everything was controlled. Our behaviour was controlled, our behaviour was corrected. We had very... our contact with the outside world, with our families and friends, was very, very regulated. Our phone calls were listened to. Our post was opened up. There was many letters I didn't get, So, and our life inside there was being invisible and living in silence, delivering this first-class domestic service to the elite of Opus Dei.
This is what I think is interesting. They were making, there was a conference centre and you were in halls, so they were making money off your work, were they?
I would imagine so.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
I
if you look at the
never privy to that because I never, I never held a purse. I never had a.
No.
I never had a key.
But you were you worked in a commercial much
Yes.
like the Magdalen
yes.
laundries took in people's
Yes.
laundry. You worked in a commercial,
Yes.
And you never got any money for that.
I never held money in my hand once. The only money I held was £50 I was given the day that I went home. I was told, use that to escape.
By who?
By whom? Okay.
Okay. In terms of the psychological effect this has had on you, you talked about the deprogramming. Will you ever get over what happened?
There's three responses to trauma, and one of them is you remember things in quite a lot of detail. It's like the fear gets locked in your brain. So I think some people have commented that there's a lot of detail in the book because I remember it very clearly. And when you're in fear, you remember these things quite clearly. But then there's disassociation. So I'm disassociated from some of it. And then some of the things I've suppressed them. But that would be common amongst other survivors. There's a gang of us we're after meeting. And it's fantastic, so it kind of validates our truth and our experiences. And so there's a gang of us here in Ireland. And I'm in contact with a lot of former assistant Numis in Argentina, in Mexico, and Spain and so on, yeah.
Opus Dei, the organisation, rejects any claims of any sort of ill treatment in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Which is something that that you all talk about, one would assume.
Yes.
It is still a very powerful organisation. Why did you write the book?
I wrote the book because I think this awareness needs to be brought to this form of religious zealotry. Also, I want Opus Dei, and I'm calling on Opus Dei to be accountable for what they've done to us, and to make reparation, and to be Christian in their response. Many of us left with just the clothes on our back. Many people didn't have, they had no pension payments, they had no savings, they had no education. Yeah. So these people need to be compensated. So that's why I'm speaking out.
So much like we're doing with religious orders in Ireland, you want Opus Dei to have to
I want
answer.
them to be accountable. I want them to be Christian and compassionate in their response.
Well, listen, thank you for coming in and talking to us about it. The book is called Serve, My Lost Years at the Heart of Ireland's Opus Dei. Anne-Marie Allen, thank you so much.
Well done, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mervyn. Thank you, Tammy.